Mm.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I always say it 3 times for some reason, but anyway, it's lovely to be here for Wednesday Wisdom. It's a beautiful day here in Shell Harbour, and we're talking with the beautiful Jenni Madison. We spoke not that long ago, actually. It was only a couple of months ago.
Yeah. It's nice so nice to see you again.
Yeah, and we just realised there was so much to talk about that we decided we were going to go again. I love it when I talk to people that there's such a broad range of topics and subjects that it's nice to be able to focus on one and then go for another go and just discuss another. And so this time we're talking about karma. I was just saying, I know karma from, I suppose an intuitive aspect of it and, watching society understand it from, develop into the understanding, because, it used to be that, that's karma, someone's getting bitten on the butt for something that they did, and all, like it was a responsibility thing. It was all about, if you did wrong, it's sort of like, like if you are sin, then you're going to get punished, right? But that's actually not the way karma is rolls. So I'd love to hear, first of all, for those that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you and didn't see our last session, can you just give us a little briefing of who you are and what you do, and then we can roll into the discussion?
Well, who am I? What do I do? I work like many. Well, my background for many years has been in health and wellness as the founder of Coconut Magic. And during those years, I guess health and wellness for me really evolved into a very deep spiritual yearning, seeking, and yoga in particular, the path of yoga. And so I've spent much time in India, and I love to learn and study the scriptures, hence my sharing about karma from that perspective, I guess you would say, to what you were saying. But I loved how you said, Elizabeth, how you came from an intuitive perspective, because really any deep wisdom really does come from that intuitive perspective. It's one thing, our intellect is phenomenal, our minds are brilliant, they truly are. And when we look at where science has come today with spirituality, is phenomenal, truly, what they can see, but it is also somewhat limited, because the mind, the intellect, can only, as an instrument in that way, can really only see so much. So when it comes to yoga, which is really where my passion is at the moment, I'm intertwining this a little bit, is the scientists look from the outside and work their way back in. As you can see, they worked from matter to break it all down into the subatomic particles, right through to the quantum fields, coming back to us to tell us that everything's made of energy.
Yeah,
Nothing really exists, nothing's really real.
It's a long way around.
All that work, and this is actually going to come intertwined with karma. And what the yogis do is what we meditate deeply and look within to that which is what the scientists have discovered today. So a lot of what we know today from the manifestation of matter from the quantum field or from energy, is what yogis have been saying for thousands of years. And so moving even, let's say, a little beyond that, we work into that intuitive perception and knowledge, which is very, very beautiful way to see.
And it's been an interesting journey for me, just bringing that up about the intuitive knowledge, because as a young child, I came from a place of I don't know, and I came into the world, left home or whatever, and found this big world and thought that everyone knew and I didn't. And so I didn't actually spend a lot of time researching or studying which I now feel really blessed with, because that innocence of curiosity and how does this work and why is this, and working it out myself was that intuitive way, and really became who I am now. Because if I'd done it a lot with the knowledge from books and things, then it may have been, as you said, that limitation of the intellect, of the mind. And I love science, and I love how you brought that in, because science is slowly getting, going, oh, okay, so that ancient wisdom actually does, have some credence to it, right? So, so it's been a beautiful journey, being able to stay in my innocence and feel into. I used to feel into words. What does that word mean? Just from a vibrational, perspective. And so, I came to an understanding of what karma is.
Well, that's a beautiful place. That's actually a really beautiful place to start, because if we were just to take it to the real basic practicals, we'll start with that. The word karma, it's one of those Sanskrit words, and Sanskrit is very powerful because it's of its frequency, a language of frequency. It's a very high spiritual frequency. And there are certain words, such as karma, that come into the English language, and English can't really define it, so to speak, and therefore it adopts it as the word karma, prana. There's so many words where Sanskrit just can't be
translated, I suppose.
That's the word. Yeah, translated into English, and so we just adopt, which is what I love that about the English language. And so if we even just start with that, karma is a Sanskrit word, and it does have many meanings, and we can take it from a macro level. Let's say when the light and energy, the very, very base of all matter, as we now know as the quantum field, manifests in duality. And from duality comes this cause and effect. And that perpetuates, this is what's perpetuating creation. That's karma is also in one, we'll start with that one. And you touched on this, we touched on this a moment, perhaps before we started the recording, how karma is often known as cause and effect. You act and there is a result to that action, or an effect to that action. And I guess that's one way to see it. But when we bring that into our own experience of karma, and we go deeper with that, because it's a very deep topic, and to know how we relate within ourselves. Karma is energy. It's part of our astral body. Karma actually lives in our chakra system.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to take it. I'm trying to give our audience a real perspective of karma is an energy, but if we could see energy, that if we can just see it as it is almost like an object, and it's a very important part of creation, but it's also an important part of who we are incarnate. So
yes, our physicality, right? Yeah.
As a soul, pure awareness, when the ovum and the sperm come to meet, there's a spark of light that goes out into creation. And then there's resonant souls that will resonate, or vibrating that will resonate, vibrations that will resonate with that spark of light that goes out and jump into that womb. And here we have, and then life, the creation of the physical begins. And that resonance is what we take. So karma is that which, in yoga, there's what we call sheaths, like layers of the body. So there's the astral body, and that's made up of our past experiences that have accumulated over many lifetimes. And that's what then is attracted, or literally pulled. That's what pulls the soul into the physical incarnation. So we descend. And actually I was speaking with a lady, a client in a session, and she said to me something about, I chose this body. And it's like, well, not quite. Your karma chose the body that you incarnate in. And and everything, and then also the sequence of events that will and do unfold in your life. That doesn't mean, though, that we have 4 kinds of karma. So I hope that was clear. So how karma, so they're energy vortexes that live in our chakra system that are the push and pull. They create the karma. Our karma creates our likes and dislikes. So if I just bring it back to, let's say, this life, to simplify things, let's say you dated a guy with red hair when you were let's say 15, 16 years old, and he hurt you. He did something terrible to you. And then all of a sudden you're 25 and you're like, no, I don't want to go near that guy because he's got red hair. And it's a completely different experience because you've generated in your energy, in your
thought patterns and your field,
your pattern, that you've associated that, and you've created a like and a dislike. In essence, that's becoming your karma. It's also your bondage. Here's the thing, right? Because what happens is we then start to control
and go into limitation, right?
Well, control. We're just not free. We're stuck in bondage. And the bondage is what pulls the soul back in. It pulls the soul to come back down into the earth, into this plane, into this 3-dimensional. So the karma, and we accumulate karma from past lifetimes. And with all of that, we come into this life, and there's 4 types of karma. So there's that which we bring with us, that which we must experience in this life, because we just must in order to resolve, because karma is also unresolved energy. So karma is cause and effect, unresolved energy, unmet desires and needs that pull us into I want, I like, I dislike, aversion. And it's also energy directed in a certain direction. So you can bring all this together. And so we have our unfinished karma that we bring in with us. And then we have our karma that we must play out in this lifetime. And then we also have our karma that we create in this lifetime. So really, go on, you have a question.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about a way of, articulating that for me. Would you say that, because of cause and effect, right? We're living in duality. In that process, we make choices. We make decisions about what is, how it is, ways of being, or, we make observations and we make choices from those observations. And so what I'm hearing you say is, throughout lifetimes and lifetimes of making those observations and choices, that then becomes our karma on all these different, because it's our observation that we then, it's funny you said that about the red-haired guy, right? I actually
dated a redhead.
No, I didn't. But I did have an experience in my 20s with the first person that I was aware of that was a Scorpio. And got stung, right? I got stung by this person, that it wasn't a good experience. And so in my limitation at the time, I made the decision that Scorpios sting me. Right? Yeah. And so I've now got a good friend that's a Scorpio. But when I first met her and found out she was a Scorpio, I had a reaction.
Yeah. Now reaction.
Yeah, and I could have used that reaction as making a judgment and an assessment and deciding that because of this, she's no longer in my life, or revered the whole thing, if that's repelled the whole thing. But in that moment, I was aware that I was making an assessment from something else. And so that's karma. Can you break that down and see what you can do with that?
So when we know the true spiritual path, then we know the true goal of life. We in ourselves are whole and complete and one with the divine. we're only perceiving duality.
Yes.
Duality doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Duality is a perception, and the more we identify with our separate self, the more we're going to suffer, and the more we go away from the true spiritual part, which is to come back home to God, to the divine, to our creator. Creation itself is the game, it's the play. You know, in the Vedas, God calls it his sport. And it's so one of the most beautiful teachings I've heard was in the Zen, and it says, to those, the path, the highest path, let me try to think of how it goes, but the highest path is simple to those who have no preferences.
Yeah.
The highest path is simple to those who have no preferences. And this is why meditation yoga is so beautiful, because when we meditate deeply, we can then move beyond our own mental jargon, likes, dislikes, hopes, dreams, desires. All of that stuff is just made up in the mind. You have your likes, dislikes, and where you things, what I want, don't want. And the Buddhist teachings also teach this through equanimity. The deep meditation once again takes us into a space where we can observe our sensations rather than let that energy, that vortex of energy, which we've called karma, get pulled into these different directions. And before you know it, life's just happening. You're like, what the hell? You don't even know. But what we do as human beings, because we come in and we identify with this false sense of self, we call it the pseudo soul or the ego. We masquerade. We're constantly deep down inside, fear, anxiety, insecurity. We all know it, right? And that is pulling us. That what you just explained was a fear and insecurity and anxiety you felt from the past, a pain. And it's pulling us in these directions. And we're just getting taken with the tides.
Yeah.
But when we come to learn to meditate deeply, we begin to transcend that personal mind. It's called the conglomerate of past experience. And in there is karma. The more we transcend that, and rather than let it pull the soul, the true witness, the one, there's no duality in the soul. Our true nature is whole and complete. The more we can transcend that illusion of self and duality and the likes and the dislikes, preferences, we may call it, the clearer we become on the path, and we neutralize. We neutralize our karma. And this is how we become free or liberated. So this is how we also, that is one way of, as I spoke of, we have karma that we bring in from the past. But what goes really deep is when we learn to not create any more karma. And that's a big one, because you know what, just by breathing is an action. Again, in meditation, samadhi is a state of breathlessness. And so there's no movement and the duality is completely dissolved. But I don't go there now with the saints and how they maintain a body in that state. But for us, we're taking action just by breathing. We wake up in the morning. As soon as I move my arm, I'm taking an action, aren't I? My nervous system to do this. We're having this conversation. We're sweeping the floor. We're doing our work. And this is where it gets really beautiful, because to neutralize that karma is where we really learn to identify with the true self and allow the flow of consciousness that is not the part of the dual creation, but creator himself to flow through us. And then it's not our actions, we might still have, I want this, I like this, I prefer this, but we're no longer, there's no more me, there's no
attachment
more
to it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no more attachment. There's no more I want this, I need this. Doesn't mean life isn't beautiful and unfolds in a magical way. In fact, probably even more so.
And
Well, not probably, definitely more.
Definitely,
so.
yeah. Because you see the beauty in everything, right? You see the beauty in the getting, and you see the beauty in not getting. You know, like you have no, yeah. And it's that observation, and using that example of the Scorpio, if I'd used that, I've got a beautiful relationship with a beautiful woman. She's one of my sisters up in Far North Queensland, that if I had have used that as a label, I wouldn't have accepted that relationship, right? And so, you know,
there's a greater will.
Yes,
It's coming into is it my will or the greater will? And there's a real letting go of itself. And it's why I come back to that beautiful saying again, the highest path is simple for those who have no preferences, because those preferences are coming from the personal self, the personal I. So
absolutely. And so using that statement, you were speaking about the different types of karma and the one that we come in with. Can you share your, some wisdom around, for those that might be wondering about the different types of karma and, coming in, people say, oh, I must have killed that person in another life, or that sort of thing, like I know someone that's said that just recently, like, oh, he must have killed her in a previous life or whatever. Can you just touch on that and the awareness of that as an individual being?
Yeah, sure. So we have one moment, the present moment.
Present
moment. It's the only reality. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter unless you make it matter.
Yes.
So it's important to really try to move beyond the cycle. The spirit's not in the psyche. The spirit observes the psyche. The psyche makes usually too much noise. We think too much. I'm going to come back to meditation. Meditation's a powerful practice. When you will, and I mentioned this when you spoke to me about, we said it in the live chat, in the live conversation last time with you had a brain tumor. Sometimes we have to have, we have karma, we need to live it out. Let's just see it like that. And let's just live it out in the present moment. Nothing can really hurt the soul. Yeah. Nothing's going to hurt the soul. As long as we maintain that witness consciousness, if we try to speculate on what we did or didn't do and what happened in the past life and why, we're going to waste so much energy.
Yeah.
And we don't even know if it's the truth.
Absolutely.
Even if we have a past life regression, they can be powerful, but we still don't know if it's the truth. The only way we know is when we sit in a deep meditation and we see the vision for ourselves. If we are blessed to see, and then even then, it's just a vision of the past. And it is in the present moment because we've created it in our mindscape in that moment.
Absolutely.
That you, the soul, the witness, does not have to be in bondage to its past unless you take your psyche there and continue to perpetuate it and react to it. If you react to it, then you're causing more karma.
Yeah.
So, as I know in my own experience, I've done some horrendous things in my past lifetime. It's almost shocking to, and that was not from someone telling me, that was my own intuitive awareness, my own vision in deep meditation, because I needed to know that. I needed to see that for what I was clearing in my own energy center. But does it mean nobody has to suffer? Again, I'm going to come back to the same of wisdom, now this time from the Buddha. What did the Buddha say? All suffering is from desire. So we come here to experience our life. And if we really come to know the goal of life, where we're going on our spiritual journey, then we just welcome every single experience. You know what? If you're the person who killed someone or did this, do you know what? Please bring on the karma for me in that, so I can now come home, so I can neutralize that. And it's essentially, if I hurt someone, I should be hurt, right? But when that karma comes about, am I going to suffer or am I going to open my heart and experience this with my heart, with my soul? Am I going to allow this energy to flow through me and allow myself to, as well, through our greatest adversities come liberation. Yeah, it's like the karma. Obviously, might be some karma. We can see karma as good and bad if we use our mind to intellectualize it, or we can just see karma as karma, energy working through us that now needs to be released. Let's welcome it, because this is what's taking me to my ultimate goal of union or unity, back home, back to that oneness.
And that's the essence of it, isn't it? Because when you can see each person that you're interacting with and the world as you, then that, like when you recognize, like that it's an internal pain, or it's an internal suffering, or it's an internal anger or frustration or whatever the emotion is, and go, okay, so it's internal. So what is it that I can shift within myself to come to a resolution here, so that I feel free, I feel at one, I feel blessed, I feel all of these things, and come back into that sacred space again, being connected to source energy, and just, living with freedom.
Centered, joyful, blissful. Imagine every experience becomes a space where everything that life unfolds in front of you, there's just joy, there's just pure joy. Because it really is a motion picture. Quantum physics has shown us that. It's a motion picture. It's just like when we go to sleep at night. And so the difference between watching a movie and watching all these awful things happen, and then we cry and we get all, but we're fine, right?
Yeah.
If it happens to us, all of a sudden it's all those inner triggers are being exposed, and it becomes a different story. But when we go to sleep at night and we dream, our gift when we go to sleep, it's time where we're still there. Consciousness is there, but it's kind of witnessing these motion pictures that the mind is making up. Imagine if we could do that in our waking state.
Yeah.
Because that's reality. That actually is the reality. We're making it all up in our mind. And again, science has shown us that with the reflection, we're not experiencing what's out there. We're experiencing it in our mind, just like we're having a dream.
Absolutely. Is the mastery of that, right? And then going, this is all joy, this is all illusion, and I'm choosing to experience it this way.
Yeah, and to see it, and I guess, and so just trying to tie it back in, our theme for today of karma, life is going to unfold. Life is going to happen, and we, in those moments, and exactly as you said, if we can see that it's happening inside, not outside, whatever's happening outside, we can then be fully responsible no matter what. So then there's nothing to fear. And
absolutely.
There's only really a joy to experience. A joy.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful joy, because it's an unconditional joy. It's not like, oh, I won the lottery, so I'm so happy. It's like, it's like, I'm just happy because I'm happy if I win the lottery. I'm happy if I lose it. I'm just happy. Yeah. It's all just a motion picture unfolding in front of me.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get too esoteric here, but I feel like with karma, we just take responsibility, but not in a heavy way, in a sense, in a joyful way, that it's here to liberate us, that all these experiences that are coming in through our senses in any given moment, we only have that moment. So open and free to experience that moment, because that one thing we also know about material nature, by the way, I loved how Mel called it the nature, or I don't know if you or Mel called it the nature of karma, because it really is an aspect of material nature, karma. The more we can just experience material nature as an experience that's coming in through our senses and let it pass by, just like you did when you saw the Scorpio. Okay, oh, oops, okay, let that pass by.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And just continue to liberate ourselves and see that no matter what that experience is, whether it's to the mind, whether the mental mind says, oh, it's beautiful, or it's ugly, or it's beautiful, or it's I like it or I don't like it, when the more we can come back to that equanimity, the more we just become freer and unconditionally joyful. Wake up every morning with this beaming enthusiasm of, oh, what's going to happen today?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't know, really, do we? Think we know, and then things change.
Yeah.
That's where I was going. The material nature is fundamentally temporary. Nothing is permanent.
Yeah. This too shall pass. Yeah.
In this material nature, in this world that we live in. And that's why in the Buddhism they speak of transcending the mind, because it's the duality lives in the mind, just as material nature lives in the mind. So as we transcend the mind, we just sit with this peacefulness, joyfulness, as the good comes and the good goes, the bad comes and the bad goes, and the good comes. Wherever there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. There's the nature of karma. So if someone has killed someone in a past life and they're thinking, oh, you're also done good things. Okay. Yeah. And they're going to come back to you too. So I guess the goal is while we're facilitating and actively involved in this material nature, we want to be doing right action. But also we don't want to attach ourselves to the results of that right action, because then that again accumulates more karma. Ultimately, we want to neutralize karma to liberate ourselves fully from all those preferences. This is really high level now spirituality, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But just to aim towards right action. And so that's where we go, okay, if I did wrong action in a past life, I'm thankful that I now get to neutralize that, because that helps to free me. And then in this moment, and as best to our ability, because we're growing, we're learning, we take right action. And it's important for us to learn through our intellect to discriminate what right action is, so it's unselfish.
Yeah. And so for those that, because we most probably going over time a little bit, but if you're okay with that, just to round it up, one of the things, in my language, when something's going on, I call it a bump in the system, right? Or there's a bump. I can feel resistance somewhere, right, in my energy field, and so it's a great way of putting it, so I go, oh, there's a bump there, what's going on? And so that I can observe it and be aware of what my bump is, because it's always my bump, right? Because if we're all one, then it's always my bump. And so for those that are going, well, how do I neutralize it? And the very nature of our mind wants to know how, and goes into resistance of I don't know, and that causes more karma, right? So for those that are watching and going, well, I've got a bump in the system, or I can feel resistance, or I'm making a preference here. How would you speak to those people from that level that are that are just new to this, maybe, or wanting to find out a little bit more of how to neutralize that?
You let go of the preference. The only reason you have resistance is because you have a preference. If I met someone who's a Scorpio, nothing goes for me, but you have a preference. You have a dislike. Not really, but you've had
Yeah.
Is you let go of that preference. You recognize the mind is playing its games.
Yes.
That's all it is. That any time we have adversity, anytime we have resistance, anytime we have trouble, it's in the mind. The resistance is just because the mind is saying, I don't like this, I do like this, I don't like this, I do like this. It's the preferences. I want this. And if you don't get what you want, this is the nature of mind, it'll go into anger, frustration, and it'll backtrack. If you do get what you want, the nature of mind, it wants more. It's never satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the way through is to transcend the mind. How to do that? That's where practice comes in, meditation. And I know meditation. I practice meditation. So it's to recognize that you are not your mind, to see the mind playing its games. Okay, so coming to a really simple, practical, for those who might be new to this, is just relax and breathe. In that moment, relax and breathe. The more you can just witness the preference, as you described. Oh, I saw my mind say, I don't like this girl because she's a Scorpio. That's and
that's a preference, right? Yeah.
Relax and breathe and go, oh, thanks, mind, for reminding me of that.
Yeah, that's an illusion, because that was the past, right? And so therefore, it's not
it's not reality.
It's not in the present. And just as to share, my partner is a Scorpio. So if I hadn't have made that definition 20 years ago,
exactly,
then and recognize and let go of it, in this now moment, I would not be experiencing the bliss of a beautiful relationship, right?
That's sort of what we were saying before. You've given a beautiful example of how if we don't let go of our preferences, we really ruin our own lives, because it's personal. We contain ourselves in this little personal bubble of stuff and karma, and we just perpetuate this little bubble. So the more we can just transcend that mind, and Sri Yukteswar says an uninvited guest quickly leaves. So the more you just say to your mind, thanks, and look the other way, it just starts to become quieter and become more present and more experiencing reality as it is, as opposed to seeing it through those clouded lenses of past and preference.
Yeah.
So really, practically let go and relax. Breathe. If it's a big one, breathe deeply.
Yes. Well, I've got a thing called the 3 breaths, and the first breath is just breathing in and like actually physically breathing out through the mouth to release and relax the body. And that's just a simple, easy way of, just I'm having resistance.
Yeah. And it's energy, as we said at the beginning, karma is a vortex of energy that is stuck in the astral body that pulls us in, and then it wants to play its way out. So when you breathe, you are literally releasing a piece of that energy intentionally, especially before we practice things like pranayama, breathing techniques, breath work, meditation. This is why they are so powerful and helpful to clear those systems. Yoga, of course, all of it.
Yeah. Such a beautiful conversation. I've loved both conversations, Jenni. It's been lovely to connect with you again. And if you can just share with people how to get in contact with you, we'll be able to put all the details into the chat, so that because where are you located again? You're in Queensland?
I'm in Queensland, but I work online, divineyoga.org.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm in Queensland. I'm very elevated space, like what you just described as well, very high up.
Yeah. Isn't it nice to be able to look over? I from my office, I can see Saddleback Mountain, it's called. And the sun comes down and the orange. So I love looking out from my office, because then I can connect with nature and tune into what I'm speaking about more. So yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jenni. And it's been a pleasure talking to you again. And yes, anyone that's watching, please, reach out and get in contact with Jenni. Check out her yoga online. And looking forward to catching up again, I'm sure.
Thanks so much. Lovely to see you.
Take care.
Notice Sasha here in the background.
Yeah, I noticed her come in. Take care.